Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. Would you agree with this? We live in an era of unprecedented anxiety. We are constantly worried about the stock market, inflation, political shifts, and technological disruptions. Does that sound true? But unfortunately, if our happiness is tied to specific standards of living or what's happening in the world, unfortunately, then we can become a hostage to events in the world that are completely out of our control. So we wake up in the morning after having a very nice sleep, we reach over, we grab our phone, and the headlines bombard us with things that are happening in the world, and our sense of peace, tranquility is gone in an instant. It's as if the world is holding us on a leash, creating both perhaps peace or extreme anxiety when we check into what's happening in the world and we look at our stocks and they've dropped by 20%. But today I want to argue that true freedom isn't when we have enough money to protect ourselves from the world, or the world is perfectly aligning with our social or political viewpoints. True freedom is reached when we are at a state where we no longer need protection because we're at peace with whatever happens. I'm not in any way suggesting that we don't care about what's happening in the world or that we don't do anything about what's happening in the world. I'm talking about being at peace, being free inside with whatever is happening in the world, and still doing things. In my previous episode, I talked about loss aversion. That's where our brains are hardwired to panic at the thought of losing our stuff, status, money, or comfort. How we, in other words, hack this is when we consciously anchor our joy in things that cannot be taken away or taxed. A deep breath, a walk in nature, the warmth of the sun. When we do this, we're essentially cutting the wire to that evolutionary panic button. Society no longer controls us through fear. Throughout history, the best philosophies and religions of the world have been teaching this. The teachings are old. The teachings are wise. They all arrived at the exact same conclusion independently. The core teaching is, there are things that are up to us, like our character, our reactions, and there are things not up to us, like the economy, our reputation, or even sometimes our health. So do we put our energy, our efforts, our learning, our skills towards the things that we can change, or towards the things we have very little or no impact on changing? Let's say a person spends 3 hours a day watching the news, keeping up with what's happening in the world, and feeling all that panic and anxiety that comes from that, and having absolutely no control over what's happening, or spending that 3 hours a day instead on studying and reading or exploring your favorite form of spiritual or psychological growth. Would we see a difference? Of course we would. Whatever we expose ourselves to throughout the day impacts us. It's like whatever we eat throughout the day impacts us. If we eat a high sugar and fat diet, our bodies are going to be negatively impacted by that diet. It's the same way with our mental diet. And if we feed ourselves mental images or a diet of things that we have no control over, but that are disturbing, there's only one effect that's going to come from that, something very negative. The ancient masters taught that humanity is enslaved by two primal fears, the fear of poverty and the fear of death. If we conquer these two fears, no emperor, no boss, no stock market crash can ever truly harm us. In ancient Rome, there was a slave called Epictetus. Being born as a slave in the Roman Empire, he possessed absolutely no legal rights, no wealth, and a physically broken body. But do you know what he did? Despite this, he became one of the most brilliant and peaceful philosophers in history. He realized that while his masters owned his body, no one could own his mind. He sagaciously wrote, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." Is your life harder than a Roman slave right now? Probably not. If we focus on what we're in control of and then put our energies towards that, we'll find that no matter what comes our way, we'll be free, will be peaceful and will find happiness because no one can take it away from us. Only we can. Have you ever heard of Seneca, the wealthy minimalist? Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, but he knew his wealth made him vulnerable to the emperor's whims. In order to conquer his fear of losing his wealth, he practiced voluntary discomfort. Once a month, he would dress in rough clothes, eat only stale bread and water, and sleep on the floor. By doing this, he could ask himself, is this the condition that I feared? By experiencing poverty in his own terms, he stripped it of its terror. Are the things in our lives holding us hostage to our fears? And you know, one of the saddest things about finding happiness through our wealth is that it doesn't work. And if you don't believe me, go to the nicest area that is by you, perhaps a luxury hotel, perhaps a wealthy community, and just stay there for a few hours and watch people. Does all this comfort, does all this wealth make them happier? I bet you'll find they aren't necessarily better off emotionally because of their wealth. It may not make them unhappy, but if they're attached to it, it can make them unhappy. So how do we move away from this fear we experience in life that's often getting fed in so many different ways? We can't just empty our minds of fears. We have to replace it with something stronger. We replace the love of material wealth with the love of everyday beauty. We replace our anxiety about the world events with steeping ourselves in podcasts, books, documentaries, or things that feed our mind in a positive, supported, uplifting way. There's so much in the world we can't control, and even our finances can be unpredictable in our chaotic world. But what we can control is our love of life right here and now. We recognize a miracle of simply existing, a cup of coffee, the sound of rain, the ability to walk. When these become our primary sources of joy, we're always wealthy because these things are always available. So what are actual steps that we can take to make our lives better, more peaceful? Perhaps we can choose to live one day a month or even one day a week to live completely simply. Perhaps eat rice and beans, turn off the television, and take a cold shower. Prove to our brains that we can survive and even find peace without luxury. And then perhaps once a day, identify one thing that brings you intense joy that costs nothing in dollars. Watching a sunset, meditating, playing with a pet. Commit fully to experiencing it every day. The next one is a hard one, but it's really helpful. It's called the mental fire drill. This is where we actually visualize losing all our material possessions and then actually walk through the mental steps. Where would I live? What would I eat? Would I still be able to breathe, love, think? Yes, of course. When we realize we don't need these things to be fundamentally okay, we're okay. Our minds are wired to be attracted towards stress. Social media apps play on this, and they get clicks because they want us to be upset so that we keep watching. But this vicious cycle causes us stress. It causes us anxiety where there may never be any. Do you know how many people I've known, friends of mine, who've jumped out of the stock market because they panicked because of world events, and they missed huge opportunities for growth because of that fear? So many people do this. So in many ways, by developing this fearless approach to life, not letting the whims of the world or of our own personal lives affect us, when change does happen quickly, we're okay. We stay calm and we make rational, good decisions. Over the years, I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and if you know any, they go through tremendous ups and downs in their careers, sometimes losing everything. But because they're able to stay calm and keep moving forward and not giving up, they often become the most successful people on our planet. Fear is so destructive. We have to be careful not to be feeding it externally or by feeding it with our thoughts. Right now, our world is going through a massive, unpredictable transition. The only safe harbor is the one we build inside our own minds. But once we start doing this, we'll see how powerful this safe harbor is. Nothing can get through it, and we are safe. When our happiness is anchored in the present moment, and only that, then we are truly free. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to www.happinesspodcast.org. That's happinesspodcast.org. Until next time, accept what is, love what is.